Picture this. You're a top performer in your company, making great money, crushing your targets, but you're literally working yourself to death. Maybe this feels familiar. That was Linda's reality. She was a successful sales leader who came to me and said, "Terry, I think my job is literally killing me, but I can't afford to quit. I'm a single mom with 2 teenage daughters, and I'm the only one bringing in income." She was trapped between success and survival, working around the clock, taking calls on the weekends, completely burnt out, but afraid that stepping back would mean losing everything. But in just 3 months, we got her a better role with a 10% salary increase, fully remote working environment, normal business hours, and it gave her her life back with her daughters. If you're feeling trapped by your own success, stick around. Linda's transformation shows exactly how you can break free without sacrificing your financial security. Hi, I'm Terry McDougall, and after over 2 decades in corporate leadership and coaching hundreds of high-achieving professionals, I can tell you that Linda's story is not unique. You see, Linda was a senior-level sales professional at a healthcare services company in a large Midwest city. On paper, she had it all. Consistently the top salesperson, bringing in serious revenue. But behind those impressive numbers was a woman who was completely drowning. As a widow and a single mother to 2 teenage daughters, Linda was the sole breadwinner. She was working around the clock, taking client calls on the weekend, always on call. She had no boundaries between work and her home life, which meant her daughters were watching their mom slowly burn out. The stress was destroying her health. She wasn't sleeping, she had no time to recharge, and felt under constant attack. But here's what made it worse. Linda thought that her boss didn't value her and that she was always on the verge of being fired. But in reality, she was their top performer and her boss valued her tremendously. She told me, "I feel like this job just might kill me, but I don't have a choice. I can't quit because my daughters depend on me." She felt completely trapped, like her only option was to keep grinding and hope that she could just survive it. Now, when Linda first came to me, she thought her problems were obvious. Too much work, not enough time, and an unsympathetic boss. But as we dug deeper, I realized we were dealing with something much more complex. Yes, Linda had time management issues. She was expected to be on call constantly, but the real problem wasn't her workload, it was actually her mindset. Linda had developed what I call a victim mentality. She felt so trapped that she couldn't see the areas where she actually had control. She was catastrophizing every situation, thinking through worst case scenarios for every client call, and actually expecting that that was what was going to happen. As a business development professional, she wasn't utilizing systems that could help her work more efficiently. She wasn't asking for help or setting boundaries that would allow her to recharge. The biggest blind spot, Linda thought every call was urgent, every request was life or death. But when we analyzed her situation, she had way more choice than she realized. She could evaluate which calls truly needed immediate attention and those that could wait for a later time. And here's the thing, she was so convinced that her boss didn't value her that she was operating from fear rather than from confidence. Meanwhile, she was literally the top performer. Her stress and burnout had completely clouded her judgment. The real problem wasn't her job, it was that she'd lost sight of her power and her worth. Here's what's really interesting about Linda's journey to me. It didn't happen overnight. She actually spoke to me once and then disappeared for almost a year. I understood why. When you're in survival mode, investing in yourself can feel terrifying. What if it doesn't work? What if you're too broken to fix? There's a lot of fear tied up in that, and that's totally understandable. But Linda eventually came back. She said, "I felt comfortable with Terry. She was empathetic but also strategic. I felt like she would keep me to task but also be understanding." Linda had tried to solve this problem alone. After her husband passed, she had taken the first job that she could find. She'd researched other roles, but they required more education. As a mom in her 50s with an MBA already, going back to school just wasn't very realistic. What really drew Linda to me was my background. 30 years in marketing and sales meant that I understood her world. I wasn't just a coach with theories, I was somebody who had been in the trenches, much like she was. Here's what Linda told me later. I wish that I had decided earlier to work with you. I was afraid I wouldn't get the results I was hoping for, but my results far exceeded my expectations. Terry held the space for me until I could become a believer in my own potential. And that is just music to my ears. That's exactly what I want for all of my clients. So here's exactly how we turned Linda's situation around in just 3 months. Phase 1, month 1, immediate stabilization. First, we had to stop the bleeding. Linda was in crisis mode, so we couldn't just jump straight into career strategy. We had to stabilize before we could strategize. We started with time and stress management strategies for immediate relief, but more importantly, we worked on shifting her mindset. Linda was constantly catastrophizing. Every phone call felt like disaster. Every request felt like a threat. I taught her to evaluate situations, to breathe, and to be objective instead of falling prey to her emotions. We created frameworks to assess which calls were truly urgent and which ones just felt urgent because of the stress that she was under. Phase 2, month 2, building her influence. Once Linda felt more in control, we moved into influence strategies. She'd been operating from fear, never pushing back, never setting boundaries, never advocating for herself. We worked on specific strategies to influence her boss and to create boundaries between work and home. Linda started having conversations that she had avoided for months and realized her boss actually valued her tremendously. The real breakthrough came when Linda started recognizing her own worth. She stopped seeing herself as lucky to have a job and started seeing herself as a valuable asset to her company. And then we moved into phase 3, month 3, the breakthrough. Linda actually started believing that there was a way out of a job that she was good at, but that she actually hated. We identified her skills that could translate into a customer success leader, leveraging her relationship building abilities in a more structured, sustainable environment. The moment Linda started believing in possibilities instead of feeling trapped, that's when real transformation happened. So the results? Here's where Linda's story gets really exciting, because the results were better than either of us even imagined. By the end of our 3 months together, Linda had landed that customer success leadership role, but here's what really blew my mind. Not only was it a better fit for her personality and skills, but her compensation actually went up by 10%. She went from a job that was literally killing her to a role that energized her, and she got a raise. She was now working completely remote during normal business hours, no more weekend calls, no more being on call 24/7, no travel requirements. The real transformation was in Linda herself. The anxiety was gone. And for the first time in years, she had time to spend with her daughters without feeling guilty or distracted. I spoke with Linda about a year after she started her new role, and it was like talking to a completely different person. She'd lost weight because she wasn't stress eating anymore. Her new boss valued her, and she had already been promoted once. What really got to me was when she said, "Terry, I finally feel like what I'm doing aligns with my natural talents and experience. I'm happy." Yay! Now 4 years later, Linda is still with the same company 4 years later and got another promotion in 2024. She recently messaged me and said, "I'm still loving it here and seeing lots of opportunities for advancement." This wasn't just about finding a new job. This was about Linda rediscovering who she was professionally and personally, going from surviving to thriving. Working with Linda taught me something profound. Sometimes the biggest hurdle isn't your circumstances, it's your own mindset. And guess what? That's something that you actually have control over. Here was Linda, highly educated, incredible professional experience, and a proven success. But she'd been so gutted by her personal losses and by the stress of being a single mom that she had zero strategy beyond just survival mode. But I believed in her potential even when she couldn't see it herself. The breakthrough always comes when they shift from I'm trapped to I have choices. So if you're thinking, this sounds exactly like my situation, you're not alone and you don't have to remain stuck. If you're feeling trapped, maybe you're successful on paper, but you feel like you're drowning privately. Maybe you're working 60 to 70 hours a week, lying awake at night wondering if this job will kill you, but feeling like you have no other options but to continue on. That feeling of being trapped, it's usually not as real as it feels. When you're in survival mode, your brain literally can't see the options that might be right in front of you. The question to ask is, what choices am I making that I'm telling myself aren't choices? Linda thought that she had to answer every call immediately, that she couldn't set boundaries, that she had to keep grinding even though it was killing her. But we found room to change every belief. You don't have to sacrifice your health, because nothing is worth sacrificing your physical and mental health. If you destroy your health, you can't provide for anyone. There's always a path forward that doesn't require working yourself into the ground. So don't wait a year like Linda did. Schedule a call with me and let's identify where you have more control than you may realize. If you need a career pivot, I can help you to see how your skills can translate into something that serves your life instead of consuming it. I'm Terry McDougall, the High Achiever's secret weapon to happiness and success.